Imagine standing alone, your armor blood-stained, sword cracked, your breath steady despite the storm of arrows overhead. Behind you, your family, your village, your honor. Before you, an empire. Most would kneel, but not this man. This is the story of a samurai who didn't just fight back. He humiliated the mightiest warlord Japan had ever known, and in doing so, rewrote what it meant to be loyal. His name was Saito Dosen, but he didn't start with a name. He started with nothing, and this is how he rose from an oil merchant to a warlord feared by emperors. 16th century Japan was a land drenched in blood. The Ashikaga shogunate was in decline. The emperor was a figurehead, and the real power belonged to whoever had the sword, the land, and the loyalty of warriors. This period, the Sengoku Jidai, was not just a civil war. It was hundreds of civil wars, overlapping, backstabbing, merging into an endless game of thrones across the islands of Japan. In the middle of this chaos, far from Kyoto's political intrigues, lived a man with no title, no estate, and no samurai lineage. Saito Dosen was born in Mino province, into a merchant family that traded oil. In a culture where warriors held status and merchants were barely above peasants, Dosan's future was supposed to be forgettable, but something burned inside him. An ambition not bound by the strict codes of class or honor. He watched samurai who were born into privilege, clumsy, arrogant, wasteful, get themselves killed for pride. He saw how loyalty often ended in betrayal, how blind devotion could get even great men destroyed. And slowly, Dosen realized something most warriors never did. Honor in the wrong hands was a trap. He changed his name multiple times as he climbed, first calling himself Matsunami Shigoro, then Nagai Norihide. Each name reflected a different stage in his social advancement. Each reinvention allowed him to slip past rigid class systems. He used bribes, marriages, alliances. He embedded himself into the Toki clan, the lords of Mino, and watched as they crumbled from within. The Toki clan was weak. Dosan saw it. The daimyo was ineffective, surrounded by rivals, and burdened with internal strife. When the moment came, Dosan acted. He raised an army, turned Toki's retainers against him, and overthrew his own lord. It was a betrayal, yes, but in Dosan's eyes it was correction, a removal of incompetence. The people of Mino, surprisingly, accepted him, not because he was born noble, but because he acted noble. He brought order where there was chaos, stability in a time of fracture. In a matter of years, a man once mocked as an oil seller had become a daimyo. He built Inabayama Castle atop Mount Kinka, a nearly impenetrable fortress that towered over Gifu. From there, he expanded his influence through calculated marriages and alliances. He never tried to be the strongest sword in the room. He didn't need to be. He was the sharpest mind. But success paints a target. And it wasn't long before one of the most powerful clans in central Japan took aim. Oda Nobuhide, the daimyo of Owari province, looked north and saw a threat. He was a skilled warrior, experienced and ambitious. He viewed Dosen, a former merchant, as an insult to the samurai order. He saw Mino as rightfully his, and in 1547, Nobuhide invaded. Most expected Dosen to cower. After all, Nobuhide had samurai blood, a trained army, and generations of prestige behind him. But Dosen had something else, a map of the land, a grasp of strategy, and the patience of a man who had spent his life watching others fail. He didn't meet Nobuhide in open plains, where the Oda cavalry had the advantage. He chose the field near Kanaguchi, terrain filled with rivers and hills, hard to maneuver, ideal for an ambush. As the Oda forces advanced, Dosen executed a false retreat, drawing Nobuhide into overextension. Then, from the shadows of the forest, his hidden units charged. The Oda army was crushed. Nobuhide barely escaped with his life, and Dosen's victory sent shockwaves across Japan. The message was clear. This was no impostor. He may not have been born samurai, but he had earned his place. But Dosan wasn't just a fighter. He was a long-term thinker. After the battle, he made a move no one expected. Rather than continuing the war with the Oda, he sought peace through marriage. He offered his daughter, Nohime, known for her intelligence and beauty, to Nobuhide's son, a boy named Nobunaga. It was a strange union. Nobunaga was erratic, known for wild behavior, and hardly the picture of a future leader. But Dosen saw something in him. Perhaps it was raw potential. Perhaps it was a way to bind a future tiger before he grew his fangs. Either way, the marriage created a fragile alliance, one that would echo through history. But while Dosen was forging peace outside his home, danger brewed within. His own son, Saito Yoshitatsu, began to fear that his father saw more promise in Nobunaga than in him. Rumors spread that Dosen was considering disinheriting Yoshitatsu in favor of a younger son, or even Nobunaga himself. Whether these rumors were true or planted by enemies is still debated. But Yoshitatsu believed them, and that belief turned to fury. In 1556, Yoshitatsu revolted. It wasn't just a rebellion. It was a civil war within Dosen's own clan. Several of Dosen's top generals defected, throwing their support behind the younger man. Dosen, now in his 60s, prepared for battle once again. He had faced warlords and won. But this would be different. The armies clashed near the Nagara River. At first, the battle was evenly matched, but Dosen's forces were outnumbered. His trust had been eroded by years of political maneuvering, and many of his men lacked loyalty. In the chaos of the fight, he was surrounded. Legend says he fought until the end, his sword broken, armor shattered. But he would not flee. He died on the battlefield, betrayed by blood. Yoshitatsu took his father's head and displayed it publicly, a grotesque warning to rivals. The viper of Mino was dead, but the snake had already laid its egg. Because Dosen's gamble with Nobunaga would pay off, Oda Nobunaga, devastated by Dosen's death, did not forget. Years later, he would march on Mino, defeat Yoshitatsu's line, and claim Inabayama Castle for himself. He renamed it Gifu, the place where his dreams of unifying Japan would begin. In many ways, Dosan's wisdom had chosen the next ruler of Japan. He saw the fire in Nobunaga long before anyone else. And Nobunaga would take Dosan's lessons, cunning, adaptability, ruthless practicality, and apply them on a national scale. Today, Saito Dosan is often overshadowed by the men who followed him. Nobunaga, Hideyoshi, Ieyasu, the so-called three unifiers. But without Dosen, the chain reaction never starts. He was the first commoner to rise through cunning alone, proving that the sword was not the only path to power. He lived in an era that worshipped honor, yet he thrived by redefining it. He was not the strongest, not the most beloved, but he was feared, and in feudal Japan, fear could build empires. Dosan's story reminds us that history isn't shaped only by those who wear crowns. It's shaped by those willing to challenge the rules, to play the game differently, and win. From oil seller to overlord, from merchant to mentor of an emperor, Saito Dosen defied an empire, not just once, but again and again. And even in death, his shadow shaped the future of Japan. This was the samurai who defied an empire and won.